Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Black and Abroad, an interview series highlighting the lived experiences of Black expats around the world. I am Kendall Tyson, your host, licensed therapist, and a fellow Black expat. And today we have another great episode for you with another phenomenal guest. And I would definitely like to take the time to welcome Gina to our show today. Everyone say hi. Hi. Say hey, Gina.
Hi. Thank you for having me, Kendall.
I'm so grateful for you coming back. For those of you who have seen one of our previous episodes of Black Educators Abroad, Gina was also a panelist on that particular episode, offering lots of sage wisdom and perspective to our viewers. So I'm really grateful for you participating. And just to give you a little bit of background about our amazing guest today, Gina is an artist, a writer, and an educator whose perspective on the female experience has been distinctly molded by her upbringing. Ms. Gina P. Nelson is the founder and chief creative director of Bella and Bella Productions, a platform launching on March 8th, 2022. Congratulations. Dedicated to uplifting, inspiring, and empowering young girls and women. As one of 10 children and one of 2 girls born to Guyanese South American parents, Ms. Nelson understands the importance of building and nurturing a strong community of women. She is a champion of female empowerment and ultimately hopes that the Bella and Bella platform serves as a space where meaningful dialogue is exchanged, team collaboration is fostered, risk-taking is encouraged, and dreams are nurtured. Oh man, I really like the mission of Bella and Bella, and I definitely can't wait to collaborate. So congratulations, Gina.
Thank you. And thank you again, like I said, for having me. This is a wonderful space and platform that you've provided for individuals to really engage in dialogue about some of the most important issues relating to mental health. So thank you
so much. Thank you so much. You know, I think it's really just about identifying what's the pain point, what's the need, and how do you feel that need, right? How do you feel that void? And I think we all have gifts that lend itself to seeking solutions. So just an idea built into a reality. That's why, oh, that was a really good quote. I need to write that down. To kind of get us to this point. But I want to ask you, as I always do at the beginning of these very candid conversations, is how would you describe yourself, right? Who is Gina Nelson?
So interesting enough, normally I would say the things that's written in my bio, artist, writer, and qualify it by what I do. But now I've shifted a little bit. And this is a result of having worked with a coach, having done some inner work. And now I use adjectives to describe myself. So I am compassionate. I am empathetic. I'm amazing, just as you mentioned. I am brilliant. So I've done a lot of shifting, and even my vision board, I recreated it this year. And normally I would have categories like, you know, love, relationships, family, career. And this year I've actually shifted it, and it all has to do with being. So I wrote down, I drew a tree actually. So I think I'm firmly rooted. So I envision myself as a tree that has firm roots and values that relate, again, like I said, to compassion and being empathetic and kind and generous. And then at the top, I did some things that I considered like kind of like the fruitage of, or the foliage of a tree, and things that I aspire to. So such as being more at peace with myself and not worrying about anyone else's opinion. So there's a lot of learning and growth that I've done since being here in the UAE. And it's been a wonderful journey, to be honest.
Yeah, because you've been there 8 years, right?
8 years, yes. And it was initially only for one year.
I promise you, like everyone that I've spoken to has always outstayed the amount of time that they initially thought they would be here. I mean, similar to myself, I was like, okay, y'all got me for 2 or 3 years max, I'm out. And I'm probably gonna be here like 6-ish. I'm out here, I'm 4. So I don't know. I think it's kind of, you get kind of used to the life that you've been able to create for yourself as an expat. And it's really, once you've gotten settled, you really enjoy what you do, hopefully, that you really get to create a variation of a life that maybe you wouldn't have back in the US or whatever your home country is. I don't know. I really like the freedom that being an expat gives me.
Yeah.
But that freedom comes with a price.
Definitely, definitely. I agree with you 100% because I think here I'm able to do some things that I wouldn't necessarily do back home, even in terms of career, and then even in terms of expanding like my social network. I mean, I'm meeting individuals from all over. Like I have friends from Syria, from Lebanon, Tunisia, you name it. So we're in a big city, of course, I would have that, but I come from a small city, Hartford, Connecticut.
Mhm.
So I think we have approximately 120,000 individuals. So it's quite
Wow.
small. Not to say that we don't have immigrants coming from all over the world, but nowhere near as what you would find here in
Yeah.
the UAE, and specifically Abu Dhabi and Dubai.
Yeah, for sure. You have the opportunity to connect with and build, relationships, platonic, whatever, with a wider swath of people, which I think helps to culture us in a way, helps to grow us as people
Yes.
as well. Especially in the human services and the work that we do, it is all about building connections. It's all about, helping people to kind of unearth that potential that they have that we may not realize unless we are blessed with being able to interface with a wide variety of people. Well, I'm curious. I noticed that, you shared, I love the concept of the tree, right? Really being rooted in yourself and what is the fruit that comes out of that, realization and recognizing and nurturing. I'm wondering, how do you think that your awareness has shifted, your perspective has shifted, and you've grown since, moving to the UAE?
Yeah. So there are a couple of things that kind of made me do a lot of reflection. I normally always journal, but what had happened at my job was that I was given a larger remit. So I was asked to move from a very small town that had about 60,000, not quite 60,000, and I was managing about 26 schools. And then I was asked to come over and now manage about 102 schools, 103 schools. And I didn't really know the team. And so here I'm being asked, and there was a lot of resentment, I'll be honest, from some of my colleagues. They're like, who is she?
Right.
Kind of, at least this is what I felt and
Yeah.
envisioned. So felt it coming in. So who is she? She's coming from this small town, now taking over, quote unquote, taking over our schools. And I knew I needed some help. And of course, those questions about what if I'm going to fail, etc. And that's when I availed myself of working with a coach. Our job at the time said that we had an individual who had done her coaching through the ICF, the International Coaching Federation.
Right.
And we, as leaders, were allowed 6 free lessons, coaching lessons. And I said, sure, for free to grow myself.
Yeah.
I'm all in. So I took those, and also because I needed help, honestly. I was coming against some resistance and I could, like I said, I can feel it. Even things weren't said directly to me, I could feel it. And I remember one of my team members specifically saying to me, she said, I was never afforded the one-on-one conversation that you had with our line manager. Whether that happened or not, I couldn't tell you. But then here I was trying to kind of build this culture of openness and honesty, but then also valuing what each team member brought to the table. And it was challenging, I'll be honest. So from there, I started to remember thinking, okay, why don't they want to work as hard? I'm here till 5 in the afternoon on a Thursday when everybody's gone. I'm the only person here, with the security. I'm like, why don't they have the same work ethic? And I was like, I have to believe that every person is doing his or her best. That's what I have to do as a leader. I had to work on myself first before I could lead other people. Yeah. And it was powerful, to be honest. It was very powerful.
It sounds like
that's helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to tell you.
I really appreciate the perspective, especially as someone that works in leadership and education. When things don't work out, it's very easy to blame others for the outcomes that we receive, right? And granted, there are things outside of our control, but the simple fact of shifting your perspective to understand that first I need to work on me in order to be able to give in abundance to other people. Because there's this, concept in therapy where if you change some things, if you shift your perspective, if you work on yourself internally, everything already shifts because you're not the same. And so how you interact and engage and judge maybe or don't, it will be different. So the outcome will be different, right? So I really appreciate you sharing, that perspective. It's a internal job before it's an external situation. So
and Kendall, to be honest, it's helped me, like, not only professionally but just personally. My relationships, I think, have strengthened as a result. So I'll give you a perfect example. One of our assignments, and I'm working again with a coach again, because I'm also, I told you, maybe shifting jobs and coming into a new environment. So I just started working with a coach again. And one of our tasks that we had to do recently was, talk to someone you had a conflict with, and using some of those strategies that we normally would use as a coach. So asking a lot of questions and not judging, because we do judge from time to time. Believe me, we do, but really taking off that judger hat and being open and curious. So I went up to a friend recently. We had a conflict, and I just shifted the language. So not using you. It was like, can we agree to, just being really careful about the language I was using. So I wasn't putting blame on him. And really just having an open conversation. And it was funny because at the end, he was like, what did you just do? He just literally said that to me. He was like, what were those questions again?
What is this, voodoo?
I know. I mean, he was amazed himself. He was like, and then when I pointed out some of the things.
I love it. I love it. Oh, see, that right there is a testament to the power of doing things just a little bit differently, and the type of outcome that you can receive, and guaranteed he's going to remember that and probably try to do it in another situation himself. So kudos to you. Well, let me ask you, I wonder, tell us about your genesis. Tell us about the genesis of your journey to becoming an expat.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think, let me go back a little bit. So I grew up one of two girls and one of 10 kids in a household. So traveling for us, because my dad at the time, he's no longer living, he was an engineer and then became an educator later in life. And because you have 10 kids, not to say that he couldn't save up a lot and take us on this extravagant vacation every year. So a lot of my friends and classmates, they were going, to Europe with their families, etc. And for my dad, going to Canada was probably the biggest trip he could take us on every year. And we appreciated it. It's never that we felt that we were left out of something or missing something. So every year he would pack us up in the Oldsmobile, drive us across the border. We're all packed in and sandwiched in the car in the back, one sitting up front, one sitting back. That's how we had to position ourselves. And so believe it or not, I've never gotten on a plane until I was 21.
Oh, wow.
So so a late bloomer in terms of travel. And it was really and I speak about this all the time. It was Maya Angelou's book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And I distinctly remember, we read it like in 7th grade, 8th grade. I remember her teacher telling her, Stamps, Maya Angelou was from Stamps, Arkansas. She goes, Stamps is just one place in Arkansas. Arkansas is just one place in the USA. USA is just one place in North America. North America is just one place in the world. And I've always just had just been open and curious. And I was like, I want to see what's beyond, even though at the time, my family couldn't really afford or we didn't have the resources to travel outside of pretty much Connecticut and then going to Canada, which is where most of my siblings and I were born. I was always curious about what's beyond Hartford, Connecticut. So at 21, I took my first travel, and it was within the States, just to Tucson, Arizona to visit a friend. And then from there, I just kind of had the travel bug. And that is what initially led me to traveling. And then in terms of traveling abroad, it was just an opportunity that I happened to see literally when I was teaching in the inner city in Hartford, Connecticut. I
Mhm.
was trying to figure out what to do with my summers. Most summers as educators, sometimes we just travel.
Right.
And here in the teachers like lounge area, there was just a posting that said, want to teach abroad. There's an opportunity in China to teach abroad. And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah,
that's
because
how
you
that
did come
actually
here.
started my journey. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I came in 2005. I started coming to China in 2005 for the summers, training teachers. It was opportunity to train teachers. So, and most of them actually, honestly, were more accomplished than we were in the sense that they had publications, they had written books. And here we were training them in like English language pedagogy in
Yeah.
terms of training their students. So it was
Yeah.
a wonderful experience. And from there, that's kind of what was like a springboard to
Yeah.
me starting to look at opportunities abroad to work and
Wow.
study.
Wow. So how long were you in China?
So I did from 2005 to 2008, I
Okay.
did 4 summers. So
Okay.
2-month summers.
Yeah.
So I started out in Suzhou. So
Okay.
just in Suzhou, which is west of Shanghai, not too far
Yeah.
from where you are.
Yeah.
Then I was in Wuhan. So I taught
Really?
at the university, Wuhan University of Science and Technology. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That
So training their professors. Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. And the fact that they thought we were, and not to say we weren't capable of actually doing the job, but it was just a wonderful dialogue and exchange. And in fact, the woman who started it, she started it shortly after September 11th. And
mm,
she said she really wanted to bridge the gaps between East and West. And that was one of her main impetus for actually starting this program. Yeah.
that's amazing. And again, I go back to the statement I just made, an idea born into reality, right? It's amazing how, I mean, everything that we have that has come to fruition, the computer that we're on, the technology that we use has always been an idea born into reality. And it takes a special person to be able to do that. So I am so intrigued by the genesis, the impetus of your journey to being abroad, um, and the training aspect of it, not necessarily being like the teacher, which is what a lot of individuals in China do. Nothing wrong with that, right? But just having a different perspective, a different role, I think allows you to see things a bit differently, and have a different experience as when you are abroad as an expat. I wonder,
For
what do
sure.
you think it would take for more of us, Black women, Black people of the diaspora, to take that journey, to being expats, nomads, studying abroad, just to be a bit more courageous and take risks in this particular type of arena?
I think, well, what I think is important, and both of you and I are part of that expat community.
Yeah.
So really forming communities and showing people, because I always say lead by example, show the
Mhm.
way. It can be done. Yes, there are going to be challenges. We all know there are going to be challenges moving
Right.
abroad, moving anywhere, outside of your comfort zone. But I like strongly encourage people to take a leap of faith. I always say the worst thing, you can always go back home.
Yes.
At the worst case scenario, always go back home. So
Yes.
I think us getting those of us who have been abroad, really creating opportunities and spaces to engage in dialogue and have, like discussions with individuals and then really encouraging them, I think will be extremely helpful.
Yeah, I agree with
Because I
that.
don't think there's like, even with my friends who wanted to move abroad, they've been looking at the right opportunity, and it's really about pushing yourself beyond the comfort zone and taking that leap of faith.
It
Yeah.
is.
And I would say go for it. Go
It
for it.
is. It is. I
And
just,
I would say most of the individuals I know who are Black, who've come abroad, have really enjoyed their experiences.
yeah,
Sometimes individuals have had some challenges, and sometimes that's, of course, related to um, it could be race, because we have less of those issues here. But I
right.
know even in China, where you're at, there have been issues with race, there have been
Yeah,
issues with class. So it definitely depends on where you go.
yeah,
But I think in general, the life has been a lot more palatable in terms of living, in terms of acceptance, and accepting differences amongst
hmm,
individuals who are coming abroad.
yeah. I love it. I listen. I tell everybody, I say, had I come sooner some days I wish I'd come abroad sooner, but then when I think about it, that wasn't the trajectory of my life. I came when I was supposed to come, but there was no fear. I swear, as soon as the opportunity the second time around presented itself, I was kind of in a transitory phase in my life. I was leaving a job, thinking that I'm going somewhere else. So I knew that I was moving. I just had no idea that it'd be clear across the world to another country. But then when I think about it, this is exactly, the move that was designed and aligned specifically for that particular time in my life. And so I think my hope for people of the diaspora would definitely be to take the risk, right? And I say this all the time, we belong everywhere, right? There are opportunities that abound. We're knowledgeable. We're relational people. We can get along, well with others. And I think we owe it to ourselves to kind of break outside of, like you said, that boundary. What else is beyond what it is that I was born into? Just because you were born into it doesn't mean you have to stay there. Mm-hmm. So, the world's literally our oyster. So, share with us, what do you think has been one of the most impactful moments that you've experienced while living abroad?
Wow. So many. But I would say it goes back to the friendships I've developed here. That has definitely resonated with me. And then first, let me start with where I am in the Emirates. So the openness of Emiratis, there's something that's really beautiful about their culture, and it stems from their faith. And it's so powerful, honestly. It's so powerful. The whole inshallah, which means if God wills it, so it will be. It's so beautiful. And it resonates with me on so many different levels. Of course, there are going to be times when you have tough times, right. But the fact that they, for the most part, go back to their faith, and it's like, if God wills it, it just helps you shift your perspective a lot. Even when you were just talking about these opportunities yourself, about you had the opportunity once to go abroad, and then it wasn't where your trajectory of your life was going, right. But then the second time you were able to avail of yourself. So that for me has been extremely impactful. And then, like I said, the friends and the relationships I've been able to forge here have been just so powerful and helping me grow as well. Seeing different perspectives, because Kendall, I'll be honest, I told you I've done a lot of work on myself.
Yeah.
I have the tendency to want to always give my opinion, and nobody's asked for it. Not at all. And I have to share this with everyone, because I actually ended up being in the receiving end a few years ago when I came back to New York, and I was sitting at a table in the evening after we had been hanging out, and my friend, it was amongst people, one person I didn't know and a couple of people I knew, started giving me dating advice. And I remember getting really offended, didn't say anything at the time. I listened, but I was like, I didn't even ask him. He's not even married. And I was like, I know. And then me being on the receiving end of that evening, that night, made me think about my own behavior. It really did. And I said, I have the tendency to do that. Just give my opinion. So now what I do, unless my friend, and I'll give an example. One of my friends was having difficulty with his father, and he sent to me on WhatsApp what he was going to write to his father. And there were some curse words, and I wouldn't have necessarily said it like that. But all I said to him, without giving my opinion, I said, I wish you the best with mending your relationship with your father. I didn't give an opinion. I didn't tell him to reword anything, nothing. And I was like, okay, this is Gina evolving. Okay, this is Gina growing. Because normally I'd be like, no, I'm not going to curse out my father on this text,
Right, like, who are you?
Yeah. So I just held back everything, So my friends have taught me a lot on this journey. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I like that. And one of the key things that I definitely hear, as an underlying element of it, is that you have to be willing to grow. Like, you have to be open to the process of change, right? You can be willful, even though the change is staring you right in the face, or you keep encountering some of the similar situations that seem to be really challenging. And I am of the belief that we face things until we learn the lesson. So when you are open to the possibility of doing things differently, really taking the time to do that introspective work, which is work, right? When you have to hold up a mirror and really see
It is.
yourself. Yeah, like folks don't understand, like this ain't easy. Right? You are contending with the hurt parts of you that influence the behavior, right? The self-protective things that we do. And so it's really understanding, who are you outside of the trauma that you've experienced? Who are you outside of the normal ways of being? Who do you want to be? And I'm really excited about, your journey, because it's a journey. It's not a destination.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And I love what you just said. Who do you want to be?
Yeah.
So that's what it is. Yeah. Exactly. What do you want to do? Who do you want to be?
Exactly.
How do you want to show up?
Exactly. Yeah. That's one of the things I have people, and myself included, processing on a daily basis. How do you want to show up today, and who do you want to show up as today? Like, who do you want to be today, and how do you want to be? And those, I think, are some very poignant ways of starting your day in a mindful way, and then behaving in a way that's in alignment with the outcome that you're seeking, as opposed to being reactive to everything that happens, not really having control over your emotions and how you engage with people. I think if you start the day with just those simple questions, like, who do you want to be today, and how do you want to show up? You can act like it. You get to choose, right? And I feel like it's really empowering, because people have the tendency to, oh, well, she made me do this, and I'm, and made me feel like this, and I'm always like, did she really?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Or is that what you wanted to do? Yeah. So that really takes me into the conversation about mental health, because everything that you're saying has a foundation in my mind of improving your mental health, which has ripple effects throughout the rest of your life. And so I'm curious, let's just think about growing up. This is the question that I love to ask everyone. When you think about, if you can recall growing up, can you recall any conversations, any type of messaging, good or bad, when it came to like discussing mental health, talking about mental health? What can you recall?
Yeah. So first, let me start with my family. Nothing was ever discussed. Nothing was ever discussed about mental health. If you're feeling a little low that day, nothing was ever discussed. Definitely put under the rug. And I come from, as I mentioned, Guyana, or as you mentioned, Guyana, and it's heavily influenced by the West Indies. So a tendency there to not really show emotions. My dad was very, very stoic. Most people would tell you, like, you didn't want to cross his path, smiled and, engaged with people for sure. But he was definitely one individual that did not show his emotions. And so we never knew what was going on with him. And actually, I've done a lot of reflection, and I wish I had asked, and I didn't have that introspection, when I was younger. So unfortunately, one of my brothers passed away. This was more than 20 years ago. And my dad never cried. And I wrote about it, and I said, I'm sure he cried in his bedroom that night. Yeah. He always felt like he had to be this really strong individual for the family. And I get that. But sometimes I think that really puts us, especially as Black families, at a disadvantage, to be honest. I really do. This whole notion that the man always has to be strong, not show emotion, not divulge his feelings. I don't know if that's the way to go. I don't think so. Yeah. So I came from that upbringing. So nothing was discussed. I know our family does have mental health challenges, both on both parents' side, but those have never been addressed. And then when I got to college, we had, as a result of having our health coverage, there was an opportunity to get, I think, 3, they didn't call them mental health sessions. I can't remember what they called them, but 3 sessions with a therapist if you wanted. None of us availed ourselves of that. I'm sure I could have benefited of it. One of my closest girlfriends did. She's one of my closest girlfriends then. I'm now. And everyone was like, oh, she must be crazy. So this whole stigma that because she wants to ask for some help, she's crazy. She was the only one who actually had the sense, self-awareness at the time to say,
Yeah.
no, I need some help. I'm going to go avail myself of this help. So yeah, it's just it was always frowned upon
Yeah.
to seek some help outside of yourself, especially
Yeah.
when, or talk or discuss mental health.
Right. I thank you for sharing that. Like, there's so many nuggets in what you offered. One, the family dynamic aspect. Literally, every individual that I have interviewed for this podcast has said the same thing. No, we didn't have discussions about mental health. What was that? We didn't talk about, we didn't make space to talk about, are you feeling depressed? I don't think that we honestly, yes, there were people that were depressed. Yeah, y'all had anxiety. Yeah, there were maybe some schizophrenia or bipolar or other, things going on, but we didn't have the language for that because we didn't have the access to those particular resources. And let's just say we did. Because of the stigma, we're not about to put ourselves out there to be seen as defective and problematic in our communities, right? And then that takes me to a direct path to what you shared as far as your father having to be this notion that men, Black men especially, have to be this really rigid and solid, strong, unemotional individual, not really understanding that we can shift what strength looks like. There's strength and vulnerability. Actually, that's the strongest person that's able to be vulnerable. And it just really makes me think about how, when I think about my own dad, how his anxiety shows up. And Daddy, I love you if you're watching this. My daddy is intelligent. My daddy, runs businesses, does all kinds of things, but I can tell when his anxiety is kicking up because he goes to his shed and he builds stuff and he just makes things and he tinkers. So being able to create is a way for him to exercise that nervous energy. And he hates it when I'm like, are you anxious? No, I ain't anxious. I don't, what is that? It's just like, but you are.
But you touched on something, Kendall, not to interrupt, about creating. About creating. It's such a powerful way. And we're made as creators. Yeah.
Exactly. And I believe just even with this platform and Bella, there's something about being able to create something, again, like I said earlier, to fill a need, to fill a void, to help someone through a situation, that there's so much healing in it, right? A way to be able to process your experience and the experience of others in a communal setting just brings about a deeper level of, I think, introspection and self-care. So let me ask you, when you think of a hope that you have for the prioritization of mental health in Black communities, of the diaspora, what would you hope for that to look like?
Well, a couple of things. Being an educator, I would like to see the conversations taking place and spaces develop for young kids, African American, individuals of the diaspora, to actually have those conversations within schools. And there's got to be a way to build that in schools. That would be one of my biggest priorities, to be honest. As an educator, I know when I was even teaching, I've always taught in inner city. So primarily African American kids, Latino kids, kids who are struggling, coming from all sorts of backgrounds, one single parent households, households where there's a lot of disruption in terms of, it could be finance, etc., where they're not just given the accesses or don't have the access to resources. So first, putting it in schools. There's got to be a way to build that within the curriculum too. I think that the curriculum needs to shift so that we're talking about these life skills, like how to manage your emotions, how to channel that energy into something where you're creating something positive. I think it needs to be built in the curriculum. And that's where I would go as an educator, 100%. That's the first thing. And then the next layer is the church and the community. We've got to have these conversations there as well.
Church, I'm sorry. Oh my God. I was just talking to my mother about that yesterday. I was like, when I go home, I don't know if it's for good or to visit. I need to have conversations with members in the church. We have to talk about mental health like today.
You have to. Because, okay, so Kendall, let me back up a little bit. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
And we're taught, as most religions, I believe, that, rely on God, put your strength in God, rely on him. And there's nothing wrong with that. For sure, I do. However, sometimes you need medical assistance. You need the help of someone who's licensed, even or unlicensed, but you need a support system beyond God as well.
Right.
And sometimes, I don't want to say there's a stigma around there, but sometimes individuals are always like, so no, everything you need can be from God, from the Bible, etc. And they don't address this other part. And unfortunately, I lost my sister-in-law during COVID.
I'm so sorry.
And she was very religious. And I still don't know all the circumstances around it, but I lost her to suicide.
I'm so sorry.
It was painful.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
How are you? Oh God, I feel like I want to cry.
I am about to.
It's okay. It's okay. This is the safest space. Feel how you feel. I am so grateful for your honesty because I know that it's not easy, right? And it is through the sharing, because somebody needs to hear this. It is through the sharing that we can do things differently, that we can have more support for families that need it, that we can, lift the veil of suffering, right? Especially when it comes to our religious communities. I hear everything that you're saying, and I 100% agree. I liken it to, well, how are you right now? That's what I want to focus on. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it brings up a lot of emotions because there's a couple things. Is going back to that conversation when I said is that, had we known she was in such a dark, deep place, like I feel definitely like I could have done more. We all do, when someone passes that in that manner.
Right.
And it was challenging also because I didn't get to see her. It was COVID.
Yeah.
So didn't get to go home for the funeral. So there are all those kind of emotions and still processing it to this day, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's definitely challenging.
Right. I get that. And, to love someone is to carry their memory and to advocate, right? And to use that and channel that pain, that confusion into a way, I would imagine that it doesn't happen to somebody else again, right? And I'm really sorry for your loss and your family's loss. And again, I applaud your courage to share. And it just really lets people know that there is no shame, right? There is no shame in sharing a challenging situation, because your challenge unlocks the healing for somebody else that's going through it. For them to know that you're not alone. There are so many people that experience difficult situations all the time. And the more that we can shine a light on suicide, depression, stigma, I think the easier it's going to be. In addition to that, allowing people to have greater access to resources, the easier it's going to be for folks to seek their healing and building community around what does that look like, right? And just to tap into what you were sharing as far as the church, it just brings me to think, like, if you have a tooth that's bothering you, you're not about to pull it out yourself. You're not about to get on nasty pliers.
We hope not.
Extract that on your own. No, you are not going to sit in physical pain. You are going to go to someone that is skilled, that is trained, that maybe the Lord has put in your pathway or given the notion to do that work, to seek some help, right? To seek some respite, to get the problem solved. It is the same thing with mental health. Unfortunately, these are silent wounds, right? The trauma that we experience, depression that we experience, the anxiety, the racial tension, just all of these things compounded the complex trauma that makes it that much more difficult to live fulfilling lives. We got to talk about it. And we have to create spaces in our communities that make that easier to do. So I don't want to get into a soapbox because I can definitely do that, right? I just, again, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your honesty. I know that takes a lot. I know it takes a lot. And I hope that you feel safe to continue to share your very beautiful story. Because somebody needs to hear it. Somebody needs to hear it, right? And that's the whole point of this platform. Because as expats, the thing that you said, being here or being in the UAE and not being able to go home and then having to contend with the feelings that that brings up. And I'm wondering, how are you taking care of yourself in that regard? If you want to share.
So as I mentioned, I do a lot of journaling, walking. Believe me, walking in the mornings help tremendously.
Yeah.
So I've shifted my routine a little bit, where I'm trying to do although I exercise quite a bit, I've always been active. So I'm trying to do like 3 10-minute walks throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to get a minimum of 7,000 steps a day, 7,500 around there. I definitely think that helps me in terms of lowering my anxiety, my stress. Here, things can shift quite a lot. There's a lot of change happening here, and it can be very stressful. And it has been, I would say, since COVID, extremely stressful, to be honest, in terms of work, individuals not knowing those work-life boundaries have been challenging. So for me, the journaling is helping, the exercising, and I'm aware when my mental, I would say, state has shifted. Mm-hmm. And so I'll say to myself, okay, Gina, you know that you feel much better when you exercise first thing in the morning, as opposed to just rushing out the door in the morning, to appointment, etc. And one of the things I've recently done is I started getting overwhelmed because I was just overbooked with commitments.
Yeah.
One appointment. So now what I've done, I've narrowed it down to 3, no more than 3 meetings a day.
Okay.
Or commitment. So whether that's to gym, whether it's meeting friends, whether it's having a Zoom meeting, because I felt like I was literally just packed. My schedule was just packed, and I really didn't have any downtime for myself. So now I sit sometimes just with nothing on, just quiet.
Yeah.
No music, nothing, just sitting there, and doing a lot of deep breathing. That's one thing I've been working on. Still need to get better. And I really want to return to the yoga mat. Yeah, those are the 2 things that I would say have been extremely helpful.
I'd love to hear it. So what I hear you saying is that you're trying to be present with yourself, present in your body, engaging in the things that work for you, which may look very different for other people. And I want people to understand that the way you take care of your mental health is an individual thing. It does not have to look good to anybody else. It just has to make sense to you, right? So what are the self-care practices that you like to do? I like the walking in the morning. I actually just bought a bike today.
I know, you know me.
Her name is Onyx. She's gorgeous. And
I love that.
I love it. And it was just so, because I wanted to start biking, right? In the vein of self-care. I was riding one of the share bikes. I hate riding share bikes with 2 friends of mine. And we biked literally like 16 miles today for almost 4 hours. And then I was like, y'all, I need a bike. I need to get a bike. And so we went to the bike shop, and just through the journey throughout the day, it just hit me. All right, we need to make this a thing. If I'm really about building community around, holistic wellness, what can it look like? So then we came up with this idea of Bike Her Squad, right? Just a collective of women getting together, riding your bikes, either they brand new or broken down, just, taking care of ourselves, seeing the city, biking through the city, building community, and engaging in healing spaces together. And that's what I hear, like when you share, just sitting there, just being present, just engaging in the breathing and the noticing. That's what more of us need to do, especially professionally. Because as you've shared before, you might not experience the type of racial tension in the UAE that maybe I have in China. So it begs to differ for us to, well, I would say it's imperative for us to really check in with ourselves on a daily basis, really identify, what do you need right now? What does your body need right now to kind of expel the stress of all of the responsibilities that we have on a daily basis that we're qualified for, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. I like that question. I've heard that too. Like, what do I need today? Yeah. And sometimes for me, it's drinking enough water, getting enough sleep.
Yes, yes.
It's important. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah, you
like
said it. Those, when it comes to new clients or meeting people or helping kids and families when, modify their mental health or improve, we look at the basics. How's your sleep?
yeah,
Are you eating
yeah,
well? Are you exercising? And are you
yeah,
hydrating? Those things can
yeah.
do a complete
I
180
love that.
shift. So simple, but well, practical, but not necessarily simple to
Uh-huh.
do. I think it takes intention, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, that's my word for 2022. How do you think?
Intention. Ah,
Yes, yeah, being
I love it.
intentional. How do you think
Yeah.
being intentional has gotten you to this point, on your holistic wellness journey, thriving as an expat in UAE, and just living your best life?
For me, I couldn't even imagine another way of living. My dad, so a little bit of it comes from my background. My dad was someone who, although he was stoic, he had some great routines. And if you don't set up systems, so for me, it's been important
Yes,
to set up systems.
yes.
And my dad was very rigid about that. Like he would be like, used to call me by one of my middle names. And my middle names are Patricia and Andrea. And he would say, Andrea, set a schedule. you know
Yes.
so I literally do that even in terms of my exercise and my yoga, like that I've started again. So these are the things I start writing, like journaling in the morning. I set a schedule, so being very intentional about each day. So I already started sketching out my week, putting the times where I have engagements, but then also scheduling the me time in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I've been doing a lot of more me time recently and putting it purposely in my schedule.
Yes.
Because
I love it.
otherwise, like I said, my day will just be all helter skelter. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, you won't get to it. And it's not by, any fault of your own. It's just you get in the rigmarole of the day and it's gone. So I want everybody to hear what Gina just shared with you, that I'm going to reaffirm. If you want to do it, make sure it's in your schedule. If you want to work out, plan it. If you want to journal, plan it. Create some systems and routines. Thanks to Gina's daddy. Okay.
Definitely. Thank you. Definitely.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's kind of shift the conversation. Well, honestly, I
Sure.
think like mental health reverberates through everything. But I'm wondering, so you were telling me about a new opportunity that you have, because I want to talk about like creative pursuits. And where are you on this trajectory of moving forward professionally, personally? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So as I mentioned to you before we started this chat, so I've been here 8 years working in the education field as a manager. Although the title has changed, pretty much the job responsibilities haven't, but they've
Mhm.
gotten larger. My remit has gotten larger. So now I'm at I want to say a crossroads, to be honest. And I shared this with my coach the other day, and he helped me like unpack a couple of things to help me make a clearer decision, because coaching is really about leading the coachee to make his or her own decision for
Right.
herself,
Being action
by the
oriented.
questions they ask.
Mhm.
So in terms of my career, management level, as I mentioned, looking at educational systems. So I know I could take this experience that I've had for the last 8 years here, and leverage it in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So helping school systems back home, specifically public schools, because I'm a huge public school advocate,
Yeah.
believe in empowering young Black African American kids, Latino kids, students of color. I'm really an advocate of that. So really looking at school systems back home and how we can improve them. So that's one of the things that I want to continue doing. But recently, as I mentioned, I've resigned. And now this new opportunity to work under one of the sheikhs here in Abu Dhabi has come up.
Wow.
And so it's a little bit of, okay, here's this great opportunity. It's a little bit of ego as well, because this is a pretty big company. Everyone knows
Yeah.
it. Their expertise spans from finance to real estate to education, you name it. But then the values that I said I prioritize like family and relationships, I'm like, where does that come in me deciding to stay another 2 years, 3 years? So I have to do a lot of thinking. I haven't quite arrived at what I'm going to do, but I said I would talk it over with my mother, my brothers, who are all expecting me home in about 3 weeks, literally. They're like, when are you coming? When are you coming?
They're like, come back home.
Exactly. They're like, you've been out. Literally, my brother, who's closest to me, said, you've been out there 8 years. He's like, what are you doing? He was like, and I do question myself sometimes. He's like, what are you doing? Nobody in your family is way out there, you know? And I get, I do get that. And the ideal situation would be for me to live abroad because like I said, I love traveling. I love engaging with different cultures. So maybe somewhere in Europe where I have easier access to America.
Yeah.
I could get home, on a weekend if I need to. Not to say that I couldn't here, but the journey is just quite far.
It's
so
challenging.
so it's definitely challenging. So I'm gonna write an email after we speak. I'm gonna sit down, start crafting the email to this company, and also negotiating what I want. So I said, if I am gonna take it, I'm gonna, I know sometimes as women we're seen as assertive when we ask for what we want, but I'm like, I'm gonna ask for these specific things. Yes, if I take this position, I need to go home, 3 times a year. I need to have access, to go home, the resources to do that. So
I love it. Oh, listen, I got goosebumps just thinking about all the great things that you're gonna do. And I'm not one to be like, I want this particular outcome. I am hoping and praying that you get the outcome that is best for you, right? No matter what that looks like, because your intentions are pure. I know that you're going to do great things no matter where you are. And you're really just sharing how we need to be able to ask for, we need to give ourselves permission to ask for the things that we deserve. I mean, the most they can say is no, but if they really want you to be a part of their organization and help them grow, then they will say yes, right? And so congratulations, because I know that can be scary.
Thank you. No, it is. It is. Yeah, no, it is. So like I said, I hopefully in the next 2 weeks I'll make a decisive decision and go from there. But like you said, I definitely believe everything. I'm praying about it. I'm talking to friends. I'm talking to family, and we'll continue doing so. And it'll end up working out.
It will. Inshallah. It will. Inshallah. Exactly. Please keep me updated about, the outcome that you choose for sure. But that takes me into, I know that there are other creative pursuits that you have. I'd really like you to share with us, what are some things that you're currently doing how are you utilizing, leveraging your skill set, your gifts to bring about change in the communities that you're a part of?
Yeah. So one thing I actually want to share, I grew up in Hartford, as I mentioned, and Hartford has now, this project is being led by an artist in Hartford that I do know loosely. And he's actually decided that to kind of like beautify the city and really highlight and showcase just what Hartford has to offer. He came up with this idea in collaboration with other individuals to beautify Hartford. So I'm now one of the artists that have been selected to actually create a bus shelter. And I'll start that painting tomorrow. And I'm just really grateful for it. And I'll share what I'm envisioning to do. So the bus shelters in Hartford, they're scattered throughout Hartford. And generally, the individuals who would take a bus wouldn't have access necessarily to, or the resources to take a car to work, to school, etc. So it's in the inner city. And I was like, what can I create that could inspire and encourage individuals? So initially I was going to do something dance related because Hartford has this rich history of dance, music, etc. But I was like, let me be a little more impactful and thoughtful. So now I've decided that I'm actually going to paint a Black boy because I think there is a Black boy crisis.
Black boy joy.
I was going to focus on girls, but because my organization does that now, platform, I said, let me shift it a little bit, focus on Black boys, because we know there is a crisis in America.
Yes.
And we know the more involved a father is in a child's life, especially when it's a Black boy, the
Right.
better off he will do and
Right.
fare. So I said, I'm going to do a Black boy with books on top of his head, probably some titles that are, of some African American legends and greats. And
Yeah.
then I think the words knowledge is power. Because I honestly believe education is probably one of the few equalizers in terms of
Yeah.
giving young Black boys, girls, students of color an
Yeah.
opportunity in life.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Oh,
advocate of that.
I
Yeah.
love it. Oh my goodness. So when you sell that, if you sell it, please
I
let me
will
get a
definitely
copy.
share. Yeah.
But yes, yes, yes. I will help with whatever. You really just
Thank
spoke
you.
to me. Like, let's just go with what you were saying about there being a crisis. There's a mental health crisis with our young Black children, girls and boys. The suicide rate has increased, right? With the compounding of racial trauma, dealing with microaggressions on a daily basis, struggling economically and not by any fault of their own, not necessarily having the access to creative outlets to just be able to engage with themselves in the world and their community in healthier ways. I'm in poverty, right? So it's just, we come from a culture of people that are creators and
Yeah.
inventors and
Yeah.
artists. If you can't, when I was a counselor in the States, I would do a Black History Month, and there was this short story that my mother had, which I need to find. And it honestly talked about the day in the life of a person. And it talked about all of the things that you encounter that Black people created, right? Like you can't go through the day and not engage with something that a Black
Oh
person
yeah.
has created. And it was just mind boggling because I'd never known the depth of just how entrenched in a daily life, the culture, just living, not even thinking about it, that we really are. So I applaud your focus on education, Black boys in education, Black girls in education. And like you, I too have only worked in what we call Title I schools in the US.
Yeah.
It's just this
Definitely. Yeah.
notion, right? It's just this notion of, well, I think they deserve the best. And I think that I'm one of the best. So I want to, give my talents and knowledge and love to my children of color, my Black kids, my little Latino kids. And that's not taking away from anyone else. It's
Yeah.
just we kind of got to start in our own communities, right?
I agree 100%. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
love that what you mentioned in love. That's important. That's one of my theme words for the year. So love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love.
Just
And
being open to love and giving a lot more love. Yeah.
yeah, but also giving it to yourself.
For
That's
sure.
key,
For sure.
right? We can dish it out a lot. And sometimes it's
Yeah.
very difficult to take it from ourselves.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
No,
know, what
100%.
well, tell us about Bella Bella. Oh, am I saying it right?
Bella and Bella. Yes.
Bella and
From
Bella,
Bella and
my
Bella.
apologies. Share with us the
Yeah.
mission of this organization.
Yeah. So we're just at the beginning stages of this. So how it came about is, and I'll share this. I had a friend who was here and a close work colleague who is from Spain. So Bella is the expression they would call their friends. And she
Yeah,
started calling me Bella. And
yeah,
I was like, why
beautiful.
can't I call her Bella instead of saying Maddie? So 'cause we do really, yeah. She would say Bella, and I would be like Maddie. So we just started calling each other Bella. So Bella, she'd be like Bella, I'd be like Bella, hey Bella. And we
Yeah,
really do reflect each other, especially as women, as human beings. What I see in myself, I see in you, and vice versa. So that's how I came up with the name. I was like, let me use that expression to really show that there's power in collectiveness, and
yeah,
that this whole idea that, again, I'm a mirror of the other individual and they're a mirror of me.
yeah,
And that's how we came up with that. So from that, I decided, I was like, okay, just looking at the research that I've seen out there, we know that there's a need for women to support more women,
yeah,
to really, champion other women. And I said, this could be a great space where we create a platform where women are supporting, serving as coaches, serving as mentors, just having a connection to individuals and resources where they could see that, yes, I am amazing, I am powerful, I am beautiful, I am strong. Really helping women empower themselves. And that's, I am a strong advocate of that. I come from a strong family.
Yeah.
My mom, just producing 10 kids, I always say strength comes from strength.
Oh my
And I was
God,
like, if
right?
I could empower and help young women, especially women of color, to really value themselves, know what you're bringing to the table, and understand that you are powerful. And
Mm,
that's really where the ideas and the thoughts come from in
yeah,
terms of
I
creating
love
that.
it. So let me ask you, what is your hope? What is your best hope for Bella and Bella, and how you all will inject empowerment into the community?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I want it to be a movement more than even
Mm,
a platform. I was like, really a movement of individuals, like I said, giving them the resources to look within, because I always believe, like we've mentioned, it starts within. So how can we help young girls develop confidence, develop self-esteem? And I see this as a global movement. So starting where I'm at, starting going back to Hartford, my own community, really working with the community leaders there, the schools, the churches, really getting them involved and really creating this, like I said, this space where we have these conversations, where we're providing students of color with the resources to just live their best lives,
yes,
maximize their potential, live to their potential, because
yes.
all of us have it within us. So yeah, I see it starting like in the community and just spreading outward, really
Yeah.
spreading outward as a
Please
global
let me know
movement.
how I can support, right?
Yeah,
That is,
definitely, definitely. I will
there is
definitely
strength.
I said we'll have conversations because I love
Yeah,
what you're doing too.
I'm pretty sure like there is strength in numbers. And when you have a collective group of people with the same idea, the
Oh,
same
yeah.
desire, we can do so much good.
Yeah.
It makes me so excited for you and your organization for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah. So
we are nearing the end of our
it's
conversation.
been so wonderful.
I want to keep going, but I
I
know
know.
like people's attention spans are like,
Yeah,
uh,
no problem.
but we'll definitely have more of these. Can you share with us what are you the most proud of with your time abroad?
It's my time abroad. Wow, that is a challenging question. I don't know if I was expecting that one. So most proud of. I think, actually, it's me still taking the leap of faith to come here, to be
Yeah,
honest, because I think I shared in the Black Educators Abroad, I was kind of like, where is this place? I don't know too much about the Middle East. I didn't know if I would fit in because culturally, it's very different from anything I've experienced. Although I've traveled extensively, I've now, I think, been to 54 countries. There's something that's quite different about the Middle East. So for me, I am proud of myself for actually taking the leap of faith. And what resonates with me a lot is like sometimes when I'm coming home, and I haven't been home in a couple of years, but I'm taking the flight home, and usually sometimes I transfer through DC to go directly to my hometown of Hartford, Connecticut.
mhm.
And I'm just engaging in a conversation with the taxi driver or the Uber driver, and he's asking me, where am I coming from? I was like, oh, quite far, I've had a long journey. And I say Abu Dhabi, and they're like, where is that? And they're like, Abu Dhabi, they go like that.
Right,
Abu
right,
Dhabi, that's
right,
amazing. And they're applauding me for having moved so far away, and I'm like, it really is an accomplishment. And we
right,
never sometimes want to take the positive feedback we get, and we always brush it off like, oh no, I've been traveling all over the
right.
world, it's nothing. But it really is something.
Yeah.
So I am proud of myself for honestly taking the leap of faith and coming here.
Congratulations. You just said something really important. We really need to sit back and like give ourselves a pat on the back, realize just the accomplishments that we've accrued, that we've worked hard to accumulate. That's one of the things that I often find challenging when I work with women is the destination envy. Well, when I get this, I'll be okay. As opposed to really being rooted in the present, like your tree,
Yeah.
firmly rooted in where you are at this moment, taking it all in, noticing how you feel, and thanking yourself for doing the things necessary to get you to this point. I think that is really important for us to be able to do, just to spend more time being rooted in the present.
Yes.
Um, just a thought. I don't know. Well, share with us this last thing is, well, not the last thing. What are some non-negotiables for you moving forward when it comes to living your best balanced life?
Yeah. I do think balance is a myth, though. I do. I do a little bit because I think that things are going to shift from time to time. Sometimes we're going to need to prioritize family more than work, vice versa. But it goes back to kind of like the question, what you said, like, what do I need today? What do I need to show up at 100%? And that's what I think about, every day. What do I need personally? Because sometimes, like I said, when I don't get enough sleep, I know how that affects me. And I was like, I know how I show up then to others as well. So for me, really being intentional, I'm going to take your word. I'm going to appropriate your word.
Take it.
Being intentional about how I want to show up every single day.
Yeah.
And I'm really good. And I do a lot of journaling, like I said, every day. And I have this specific book that's called The Daily Stoic. And there's one question in the morning and one question in the afternoon. You reflect on the same question. And the other day, the other question was, will I seize this day? Which was a brilliant question. Yeah. And you reflect on it in the morning and then in the evening. And some of your thoughts obviously may shift. So I'm trying to do, like I said, a lot more journaling, really ask those introspective questions. What do I really want? And that'll help me even with this next decision. What do I really want?
It really will. I think once you begin to ask for what you actually want, you'll be able to continue to exist in both realities, living abroad, going home. But you can't do that if you don't take the leap of faith and ask for what it is that you actually want. So kudos to you. Well, do you have any final words that you would like to offer? I always like to ask, is there like a quote, a statement, a scripture, something aspirational, inspirational that really guides you? What is that? And would you like to share it?
Oh, sure. I'll change it. I've changed it. I think I shared with you. I am known in my gym to be the quote machine. So I put up the inspirational quote. I do.
Yeah.
I find something that I feel I need that day. And it could be from anyone, from Tony Robbins to Maya Angelou, you name it. But, and it's helpful, of course, getting through the workouts. But one of the things I definitely focus on, and this ties into your idea of being more present. Mine is now be more. Be more. That's all. Not do more, be more. Yes.
Yes. Oh my goodness, be more.
Yeah. I actually want to do a clothing line with that.
Do it. Listen, take it from me. And again, one idea spun into a reality. That's all it takes, right? And there's nobody that's getting in your way to stop you from doing it. Oh, when I think about that, be more, I automatically go to what? Be more what? And so from that what, it's all the things that come up. Be more what? What do I want to be more of? I want to be happier. I want to be more persistent. I want to be, more consistent. I want to be more connected. And it aligns with that whole best hopes, right? How do you do it? How do you do that thing? How do you do the being of this? Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's that. Yeah. So I'm like, be more compassionate, be more kind, because I literally have it on now I'm at a hotel because I'm exiting the country soon, but literally on my mirror, I used to have, my personal goals, professional goals, or what I'm grateful for. I can't remember the wording, but I always had be more kind and compassionate. So I was like, every day I could strive for that. Be more kind and compassionate. Kindness is free. I always say sprinkle it everywhere.
Listen, when you start your clothing line with Be More, please let me know so I can rep on the show my Be More attire and help you out. I love it. So I want to just ask you, we always do like a rapid round question at the end. So there are just a few little rapid round questions I want to ask you. One of them is, what are you reading right now?
Oh, that's interesting. I actually now am doing a little more listening by audiobook.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what I just listened to.
What?
And this focused on the B realm, Transcend by Scott Barry Kaufman. He's a PhD And he talks about the exact same thing, like existing in the B realm more often.
Mm.
Oh, and I love that. So that's one of the things I've been listening to. So I've been doing a lot of audiobook listening. In terms of reading, I did a lot of memoirs last year. So looking at some, like Alicia Keys' memoir was one of the ones that I read, which I love because I'm also a writer. So I do want to write my story, and I think that everyone should write their own story because everyone's story is so unique and so powerful. And a lot of people always say, oh, I don't have anything to say or tell, but your story really can be transformative in terms of helping yourself and helping others.
I agree with you. Well, share with us, what's one thing that you love about yourself?
I love that I am strong. I tell myself every day, like I literally look in the mirror. My friends think I'm crazy because I will do this when I'm out at the restaurant.
That's a therapy technique.
Exactly. So I'll be like, I'll sit at a restaurant and I'll be like, I love you, Gina Nelson. And I say it to myself. I love you, Gina Nelson. Yeah. And then even when I'm not feeling well, like I told you, I've been having issues with my eyes because of the dust. And my eyes were just so red the other day. I said, I love you, Gina Nelson, even with your red eyes. You know?
I love it. Because it speaks about acceptance, right? And it speaks about being self-kind no matter what. Be more. Girl, listen. I really appreciate it. It's just, it all like ties in together to bring about something, right? It's really inspiring. I get really nerdy when I'm inspired. So that's just how I'm feeling right now.
That's okay.
And my last question to you is if you were to impart some knowledge to a younger version of yourself, what would you say?
I've done a lot of thinking about this before. It's okay, Gina. That's all I would say. It's okay. Yeah. Because I honestly think that, when I was younger, looking back at our childhood, it was a great childhood. My parents provided so much for us. And honestly, I think I am who I am today as a result of not only environment, but my parents' upbringing. Like, although they were very strict and didn't allow us to do too much, they definitely didn't have us running the streets. I am the person I am today because of the things they've taught me. And I'll give you one example before I go back to the question. My mom, she never learned how to drive. And she always took the bus. Like when my dad couldn't take us anywhere, she would take the bus with us. And my mom literally would walk all 6, 7 of us at the time to the front of the bus, thank the bus driver and get off. And I was like, that's strange. Why is she thanking? And this is me as a young child, like at 5, 6. Why is she thanking the bus driver? And I was like, she's thanking him because he's got her to her destination safely with her kids. Everyone else got off the bus, just ran off the bus. But here's my mom purposely going to the front of the bus, thanking the bus driver, looking him in the eyes. And to this day, I always make sure I engage with anyone who's providing a service for me. So it could be the waiter at the restaurant. It could be the person who's pumping my gas. So they've taught me some very, very powerful things about being compassionate again, being kind to individuals, being very generous with individuals, my time and my energy with individuals. That has resonated with me throughout my life and still to this day.
I love it.
Go back to your question, Kendall, because I think I got off track.
It was like, what would you impart? What knowledge would you impart to your younger self?
Yeah. So for me, just telling myself it's okay. Everything you've done is enough. That's one thing, because I think sometimes, like, I'm constantly striving, and my brother has mentioned it to me, and I'll be like, I want to be exceptional. Well, I am exceptional. Let me rephrase that. But yeah, so just, Gina, it's okay. You've done enough. You are enough. You are enough. That's probably the thing that I want to say.
With that, everyone, I hope that you have taken away all of the gems that have been shared with us today, Gina. I am so grateful for, again, your candor, your honesty, just your spirit. I'm so glad that we've been able to connect in the way that we have. And I get the sense that
Yes.
we're definitely going to have a connection further into the future. Because we are very like-minded. That's what I've noticed. We're very like-minded. And I appreciate it gratefully. So I want to thank everyone that's watching for tuning into another amazing episode of Black and Abroad. I encourage you to keep taking risks, impacting your communities, and above all, prioritizing your mental health. Please share, these episodes in your community so that we can spread the wealth, spread the message of mental health, and showing everyone that we belong everywhere. And in the words of our amazing guest today, Gina Nelson, I want to encourage you to be more today. So with that, I'm going to say bye, everyone. Y'all have an amazing
Thank you, Kendall.
day.
Yes, you too. It's been an amazing conversation. I definitely want to keep in touch.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.